Hello, and welcome to Exceptional Business Results, where we will hear TD Bank's continuous improvement testimony from Leslie Behnke. Thank you for joining us live today. My name is Elon Patterson, and I'll be hosting from Austin, Texas. Before I turn the presentation over to Leslie, I will address a few logistics for the session. This webinar is planned to last 1 hour. As an attendee, your audio is muted throughout the presentation, but we welcome your questions and feedback. When you do have questions, please enter those through the chat function on your screen. We will address as many questions as time allows at the end of the presentation, and Smarter Solutions will follow up with all others via email or phone after the webinar has ended. There will be a recording of this webinar available at smartersolutions.com within 24 hours, and as a bonus, you will also receive access to an infographic detailing the top takeaways from this presentation. Now, I am privileged to introduce our guest speaker, Leslie Behnke. Leslie Behnke serves as Vice President of Process Improvement and Service Quality at TD Bank Group. She is responsible for driving end-to-end process improvement through development of Lean Six Sigma practices across 27 business units. Prior to joining TD in August 2008, Leslie was responsible for enterprise business excellence for the Cigna Corporation. And before Cigna, Leslie spent more than 20 years with Motorola in sales, international business development, global operations, vendor management, and end-to-end quality management roles. Leslie has been a featured speaker and contributor to numerous global business excellence forums, including the American Society for Quality, the Conference Board, World Conference Business Forums, Federated Press, Women in Leadership, and the Process Excellence Network. Leslie is the recipient of an ASQ Quality Executive of the Year Award, the Connecticut Quality Executive of the Year Award, the Leading Enterprise Award in Quality from the People's Republic of China, and several Motorola CEO Quality Awards in recognition of global best practices in quality development. Leslie, we are so honored to have you here today, and we thank you for sharing your expertise with us. I will now pass screen and audio control over to you, Leslie.
Great, thank you very much. And again, I want to thank you for asking me to join you today, and I want to thank all of the participants on the phone for taking the time to really hear about the journey that we've had here at TD in using Lean Six Sigma practices to really transform our business. I'm going to be sharing with you today, how we did it, a little bit about the foundation, the service quality team who's been leading these efforts, and also where we're going next involving to our end-to-end process management. So first of all, what I'd like to do is to tell you a little bit about the TD Bank. We are headquartered, our global headquarters are in Toronto, in Canada, and I'm speaking to you today from Toronto, Canada. TD is the 6th largest bank in North America by numbers of branches, and I would share with you today that although it started about 158 years ago in Canada, that today we actually have more branches in the United States, mostly along the East Coast. We have more than 22 million customers, and we have 4 key businesses, which are our Canadian, personal and commercial banking, wealth and insurance businesses, the U.S. personal and commercial banking, and our wholesale banking units. Now, it's interesting to note that TD Canada Trust, which is the Canadian retail arm of TD Bank Group, has really been recognized for superior customer satisfaction and customer service by the J.D. Powers Award. And they started giving that award out approximately 8 years ago. And TD Bank here in Canada has won the J.D. Powers Award 8 consecutive times. So they really, really are centered on driving customer satisfaction and putting their customers first. I think that's important to note later on as we talk about our journey here at TD with Lean Six Sigma. In addition, TD is ranked #1 from a brand perspective here in Canada, and from an employee perspective, just to give you a sense of our scope, we have more than 85,000 employees globally. So on the next page, on page 3, let me tell you a little bit about the service quality team. The service quality team is a dedicated team of full-time Lean Six Sigma professionals here at TD Bank. We are a shared services team of process experts, and what I mean by shared services is that we are 100% funded by all of the business units that we support and are embedded into. So every additional black belt that I add to the team, we have an agreement with the businesses that they will be funded by that. So in other words, we are a shared service. So that's important as well to note. Our role is really to use Six Sigma to deploy process expertise across the bank. And what we do as a team is that we help the businesses that we support to identify, prioritize, and execute on their key improvement plans where Lean Six Sigma is applicable. And then we turn those plans, strategic plans, into actual LSS or Lean Six Sigma projects. In addition, what my team does as the Lean Six Sigma Center of Excellence is that we have taken training from online training all the way through to Master Black Belt, and in many cases working with the Smart Solutions organization, and customized it to actually help to fit our business needs and issues here at TD. So we are responsible for the training of Lean Six Sigma across the businesses that we support as well. And lastly, part of our mandate is not just to train people or to lead projects, but it's actually to create a continuous improvement mindset or culture in the businesses that we support across TD. So that is the mandate of the service quality team. On page 4, I wanted to just share with you about TD's mission and vision, because it's very important to see how our work is positioned against the overall strategy of the bank. And so if you look at the very top of it, this looks like a house to you, the TD vision says to be the better bank. And I think this is very important because it doesn't say best, it actually says better. And if you think about the kind of work that we do as black belts and green belts, we're always trying to improve something. And so the very vision of the bank is to always continuously improve. So we are fundamentally aligned against that cultural view of always getting better in serving our customers and our financial results, and also looking at our adherence to our risk practices and policies. If you go down and look at sort of those pillars, if you will, these are the key pillars supporting our vision to be the better bank. And what I've done here is I've actually highlighted things that, again, help us to drive some of those key pillars. So number 1, if you look at it, is to live continuous improvement. Well, everything we do and we lead is continuous improvement, number 1. Second, to integrate people, process, and technology. So by virtue of the work that we're doing, and our lens is always to take a look at how do we bring all of those things together with a big focus on process to help us to drive the integration of these things while we're managing our risk appetite. Transparent value. If you do Lean Six Sigma properly, you know that you have your measurement systems, and you know that you're actually able to use data to help you to drive improvements, but also to help to show how are things performing. And that is bringing to the bank a level of transparency of performance that actually did not exist before. So we're very, very strongly aligned to transparent value. And then lastly, enable, and this was added actually in the last 2 years, this piece here, enable end-to-end service excellence for our customers. We started recognizing several years ago that it's important to actually start linking a lot of all this great work that we're doing. And we say we want to start looking at things from an end-to-end perspective so we can start serving our customers better. Lean Six Sigma helps us to get there as well. Again, our service quality team supports these key pillars to help us to become the better bank. So how do we do it? what is our continuous improvement delivery model? And that's on page 5. So first of all, our lens, when we go in to work with a business, is very customer-centric. Everything we do starts with the voice of the customer, whether it's in a Tier 3 DMAIC project all the way up to the highest level of strategies that we're enabling our businesses. So very customer-centric. We focus on what can we do to reduce variation, what can we do in a process to remove waste, what can we do to get to root cause analysis so that we can ultimately eliminate all the things from going wrong that can go wrong, i.e. the defects. Part of our charter is to help drive improvement with the lens of improving the speed by which we solve problems for our customers, conduct day-to-day business for our customers, come to decisionings on behalf of our customers. So speed becomes a very key strategic element for us as we're driving improvements across the organization. And for us, quality can mean various different things, but quality could be as simple as we're not going to make a mistake for our customers. Quality could mean, from a risk perspective, is that we are going to have the right risk tolerances built into all of our processes. So it depends on which lens you're looking at, but we have different definitions of quality, but we're always looking for ways to improve quality. And then ultimately, if you've been doing this work as long as I have, which you go back to my early days at Motorola, I remember when we kicked off using Lean Six Sigma to transform the business now over 25, 30 years ago. It was a new concept that said if you really focus on taking out those non-value added steps, if you focus on quality, meaning you don't have defects occurring in the first place, those are your two focus areas. You'll actually then improve your costs. Versus what I see a lot of companies doing today, we're going to focus on just cost and taking cost out. But what Motorola did, and something that I brought to TD as well, is that we're going to focus on doing things that are eliminating non-value added, improving speed, and removing the defects in quality, and that has tremendously improved our cost ratios, if you will. Secondly, risk. From a banking perspective, any of you that are engaged in financial institutions, those of you who are customers of financial institutions, which I would imagine all of you on the phone today fit into one of those two categories, you will know that post-2008, globally, that we had a tremendous amount of increased regulations placed upon financial institutions. And so from a pure Lean Six Sigma perspective, what does that mean? It introduces a lot of additional complexity, a lot of double checking, a lot of things that get layered on top of what is already happening. And so a big quandary for us is to how can we meet and satisfy that risk appetite, but do it in a way that we're satisfying our customers from a speed and quality perspective. So we've really, really been using Lean Six Sigma to help us to move through those various paradigms. And then lastly, and this is the newer piece of what we're driving towards, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later on in the presentation, is how do we connect our customer into this journey of really focusing on things from their perspective on an end-to-end process perspective. So that's basically what we do, and the way that we deliver it here at TD and through the Service Quality Department is that we use both Lean and Six Sigma methodologies. We actually don't separate them out at all. Lean and Six Sigma methodologies are part of our continuous improvement tool belt, and depending on the problem that we are solving for, we train our black belts and green belts to actually apply the proper continuous improvement tools to solve the problem. We use these tools across all levels of the organization, and by that I mean we are called in at many times when somebody's starting out on a journey to say, what do we work on first? What should we prioritize? What is our strategy? We actually use the same tools to say, how do we define what the problem is going to be? How do we measure it? But we just do it at a higher strategic level, and that's the top part of that pyramid. The governance component means we're measuring something. We use our Lean Six Sigma tools to measure how things are performing. Do we have a control plan in place? How are we reacting? That's all governance and metrics. Six Sigma is fully embedded into that aspect of it. And then finally, once we know what it is that we have to work on, it's either going to come out from those metrics that are in place, which says you're not performing at the level that you need to, or as part of our big strategic gaps that we have to solve for, we then go into execution mode, and that's then what drives that pipeline of projects that we are continuously executing against today across TD. On the next page, what do our process experts do? So to execute on our improvement opportunities, we really are process experts. That has been our motto from the beginning. And what we do is not just focus on removing waste or lean. We actually may start there if we're going into a business for the first time, because that's the first place that you can say, you know what, there are a lot of very obvious things that we have too many steps in this process, or a lot of things have been layered on. Let's see what we can do to actually take out some of the non-value added or lean it out, and that may be where we start. But our process experts in service quality also do a lot more. We go in a lot of times and we have to start with baselining something. Over and over and over again, if you go into a new business and they don't know how they're performing today, you do not know if you've gotten any better. So we use our tools to go in and say, what's our baseline? Where are we starting from? That's defining the process. So at the end of the day, we can actually quantitatively say, did we improve or get any better? So there's some aspect of define. Moving processes. Today in our business, there's many, many reasons why we have to move processes, and I'll give you some examples. So let's say that we are geographically, we are consolidating sites to make ourselves more efficient from a footprint perspective. So we may need to move processes from one geographic location to another. Sometimes what we do is across our internal businesses, we say, you know what, we're actually going to bring these two business units together, and so we have to move their processes together. It might be something that says, you know what, we found another partner that can actually do this process more effectively, and we need to connect the process from internal to external as well. So we really need to make sure that when we're moving these processes that for our customers, that we have continuity of service, and that's a big area of process expertise that the service quality team brings to TD as well. Re-engineering processes. What does that mean to us here at TD? Well, many times what we find happens is that we may have a new regulatory requirement that causes us to do something different. We actually then have to go back in and document and figure out how are we going to respond to that new regulatory requirement. So we have to re-engineer the current process. Or it may be something that says we've now got a new product that we're going to launch across our networks. Well, what that means is that all of the networks, all of the back offices, all of the channels need to know how are we actually going to respond and actually operationalize that new product. That's a piece of new re-engineering that we're doing all the time as well. So our Lean Six Sigma tools help us in all aspects of how we're touching processes across TD today. And then ultimately, when we're coming up now with designing of new processes, you have to build in the same principles of defect-free, of lean, of how are we going to measure it. Is it meeting the requirements? Do we have reaction plans in place, even for our new products? So we are today also implementing Design for Six Sigma into many of our new products as well. And so we're carrying it through so we don't need to do as much rework later on, which has caused some really great lift to the company as well. I'd like to spend a little bit of time now, and this is on page 7, to talk a little bit about how do we develop process expertise within the TD organization and focus on, first of all, the service quality team specifically. So it's not good enough, I don't think, just to call yourself a process expert or maybe to attend an external course somewhere and then say, hey, you know what, I've gotten the training, I'm an expert. We actually just start with the training here at TD, and we do a lot of things that say we want you to become really proficient in the technical application of the Lean Six Sigma tools. But in addition to that, we've positioned our green belts and our black belts to really be change leaders in the organization. So they need to do a lot of change management skills as well, which could be negotiation, working throughout different levels of the organization, And we have a whole curriculum, which I'll share with you in a moment, that's built along not just developing the technical expertise of our service quality team members, but also enabling them to be good leaders from a soft skills perspective as well. And that's all part of our people development for our team. So on the next page, page 8, we do have a very robust certification program in place for our service quality team members. So at both the green belt and the black belt level, again, Smarter Solutions is our a provider of training that we're using today for our black belts and our green belts, and actually also our master black belts. So our service quality team members will go through, if they're green belts, 2 weeks of classroom training, or black belts, 4 weeks of classroom training. We do technical tests along the way. At the end of that period of time, we do an overall test to make sure that they're at least proficient in understanding the tools that are being taught in the green belt and black belt level. Then what we do is they've brought projects into the training, and they're executing on either a green belt level or a black belt level project, or two. And then what we do when the project is completed, or projects signed off by the business, we actually require the black belt or the green belt candidate to come in front of a master black belt board that we have here internally, and we have a whole criteria set out, and they actually present to us in a robust report out how they applied the tools, what conclusions they drew from applying the tools, how it advanced the project, and what results did they get from the project to the master black belt certification board. It is at that time then, once they've passed through that they actually receive either their green belt or their black belt certification. So it's pretty robust, but I've actually tried to incorporate what I feel are some best practices globally in really ensuring process expertise. Because again, I can't emphasize enough, it's not just about book learning, but it's about application, and it's about getting the mentoring from folks who are experts in doing this and allowing us to practice, give feedback, and then finally allowing them to practice to us to say, here's how I actually applied those tools. It's all part of being that change management leader. And then from a master black belt perspective, again, after our black belts have been with us for a while, have led numbers of projects, are mentoring green belts, and also starting to lead some of our larger strategic projects, we will put them through master black belt training, and we've just now come out with a certification for master black belt as well internally. So on the next page, I mentioned already that, and I think you could see we have a pretty good technical program in place just through the certification, but we also focus as well on some of the soft skills that are required and actually to be able to execute effectively on these projects and get the kind of results that we're already experiencing. So on page 10, if you look at it, these are all of the competencies that, as part of our black belt and green belt learning roadmap, that we've built into their first couple of years as well once they join the team. So in addition to all the technical black belt or green belt training, we also have courses around facilitation, thought leadership, emotional intelligence, how to become an effective communicator to executives, impact and influence, negotiation, and then also how do we go about looking at the benefits from the project so that we can ensure that we have consistency across the organization of how we are actually coming up with both the financial and I would say also the business benefits. So that is built right into their personal development plans along with the green and black belt training. Okay, so on the next page, I just wanted to say, so I've spent a bit of time on what we do within service quality to develop process expertise, but it's not enough to have a core group of a few people who are going in and leading the rest of the organization. Those of you who worked in companies where you really use Lean Six Sigma to really change your company know that to do it effectively, you have to have a level of understanding from across the rest of the organization on how to apply Lean Six Sigma. And if you're a manager, you have to be able to understand what's being presented to you so that you can make effective decisions. So to that end, what we have done in the last 5 years is we've actually come up with the TD enterprise-wide training that is available to all of our associates now across the organization. So it starts with, we've got several in-house online programs. Starts with online lean awareness. Then as part of their roadmap, it goes to the overall introduction to Six Sigma and the DMAIC roadmap. And then we do for managers a little bit of a deeper dive of how to collect data, how to analyze the data, and then how to have that actually help you to drive your business results. So we've got some online courses around that. One of the things that we do on an annual basis is a continuous improvement forum where we look at the best of the best from around all of our, we've got roughly each year about 250 projects completed, so we pick 10 of the very best and we showcase those. Our president comes and we have our senior executives judge them, and it's really a big celebration, but it's all about actually sharing those best practices as well. We've set up community of practices, both technical and around some of our key things like end-to-end. And then we also offer classroom training to our associates across the bank that are at various levels. Managing for daily improvement, that's if you're a manager and you want to drive a lot of lean thinking within your organization. Standard yellow belt training. And then when we're starting to work with new organizations or we have new executives, we do executive training that we customize to the particular business issues that we call blue belt training, executive training. So it's really teaching them how to be good Lean Six Sigma leaders. And then in addition, we do some learning labs. And what I would like to say that I think is very unique here at TD, I haven't seen this in other companies, but we recognized early days that it actually takes almost a full year to grow a green belt or a black belt. And what do I mean by that? We are bringing into the service quality team a lot of great associates, great bankers, if you will, from across the enterprise. And we're training them to use our Lean Six Sigma tools, and we want them to be experts. They can't get that in a day or 2 months. It actually takes almost a year for them to go through the training, apply the tools, execute on projects so that they can be recognized as certified or experts. So we have a program that we put in place called the Associate Program, where we allow those people internally to spend that year to get trained up and to become black belts or green belts, and then from that they are fully certified green belts and black belts, and then we increasingly then put them on more and more complex programs. So it's a bit of a I guess, in-house training program for individuals to really become Lean Six Sigma experts. Okay, so on the next slide, let's talk a little bit about results. So far so good. We've got a service quality team. How big are we, and what kind of results have we gotten, and how long has it taken us? So I joined TD about the end of 2008. So we had some results. They had done a lot of lean work for a couple of years before that. So we leveraged off of that and actually put the program in place that you're seeing today going forward, starting 2008 into 2009. What I will share with you today is we started with about 6 people on the team. The service quality team today, this is fully funded by business in the no-growth environment, has over 100 dedicated service quality members today. We have completed roughly in excess of 1,000 projects since I've been here, discrete projects. And our benefits this year, compounded benefits, are in the hundreds of millions of dollars, from starting with around $10 million in 2008. So some just very significant results back to the business. And if you're starting out in a program like this, and I was looking at some of the questions that were coming in, it's like, well, how do you get buy-in? The best way to get buy-in is to get results. And I think that's why we've been able to grow as much as we have over the last 5 years, actually, and we're continuing to expand and grow as well. So in addition, I mentioned we've already put in some design principles into our processes. And again, we've really continued to really always look at things from the customer perspective. So those are some of our results so far. continue to grow again. We're almost doubling them year over year. If you look at page 13, this just gives you a snapshot of all the business units that we are supporting today. And let me start across the top of the page for a moment, because I think this is important. We did not have an approach here at TD that the CEO said every single business unit is, it's not a mandate. It actually, the way that we started doing this work was that we had some strong executive support from some of the, like my boss, which is an executive vice president for operations and technology, back 5 years ago, that said, we really want to use this within operations and technology so that we can get some proof points out and so that we can begin maybe to expand this across. So it was really more one of those prove it, show us. That's where we started. And so those businesses where you see on V.4 that are all the way across the page on the right-hand side of the page, those have actually been the businesses that started leading us on this journey and have really helped the rest of TD to embrace and to get bought into using Lean Six Sigma, because they really got some very phenomenal results, leaning and through some cost savings as well, increased productivity and efficiencies, and helped us also to put some of those associates in place so we could start growing our expertise as well. So that's how we got started. And then because of positioning this within our back office operations touches, it's like if you think of a wheel and spokes that go out, touches so many of our other business units that as you start thinking about, cause and effect or end-to-end, you need to start improving things up and down the value chain. So a lot of our partners on both sides said, hey, can we get some of that? Meaning, can we get some of that improvement sauce into our businesses so that we can improve our customer experience as well? So that's what we did then, is that we started then each year adding on more and more business units until now we have a pretty good blanket across TD of major business units that are at different parts of the journey. Some are brand new this year. Some are we're just building the foundation with them. Some are now into their second year and they're getting traction on what they're doing. And then those who've been at it maybe 2 years, 3 years now are actually getting embedded into how they're doing things, and they're just driving continuous improvement. And our most mature ones now are just saying, you know what, we're looking at things now from an end-to-end perspective, and we're enabling process excellence. So let me talk about the last one, which is V.5, or driving end-to-end. And I want to spend a little bit of time on where we are today in our journey, because I really think this has been, to me anyway, a very interesting and fascinating story for the expansion of Lean Six Sigma at TD. So the challenge that TD is facing today is that we actually have had some great success, which I just shared with you, in driving out costs, and we've got some great examples of speed improvement across discrete business units. All of that last page you saw, those discrete business units. Our need today is to actually take a look at things from a customer perspective across all of those business units. And our president has said, we're not connected well enough. Things are falling through the cracks. We're not serving our customers as well as we could, even though, you can go and say, gee, that's incredible because you're getting all these J.D. Powers awards. But we recognize that to be the better bank, we actually have to do a better job of connecting all of this discrete work together so that we really can get to the next place for continuous improvement, which is really transforming, taking a leapfrog of not just incremental improvements, but actually almost, transcendence into maybe shaving off half the time so that we really can be the leaders in banking for our customers. So from just a problem perspective, and I'm sure most of you are seeing this probably out there today with your customers, customers are demanding more and more, even faster decisioning cycles. Their demands are increasing. They want resolution quicker. I've already talked about the regulatory demands. Fraud for us, continues to be more and more complex. Well, bigger of an issue every single year. and that we're continuing to see what we call disruptive innovation in our industry, meaning some non-banks are coming in and maybe taking a piece of that pie. So all of those things are driving us to say we've really got to do things dramatically different in order to not just stay where we are, but to actually continue to be better and better. So the decision was made last year by our president to say we are now going to apply the end-to-end lens. We are going to determine that products in our world are the business owners, the process end-to-end process owners, and that we are going to use this to help us to drive legendary customer experience. We will use this to actively manage and improve and get rid of those white spaces in between the business units where so much of our problems exist today from a waste perspective and customer satisfaction. And we will also use this to help us to somehow get through the quagmire of all of the additional complexity brought on by our increased regulatory and risk requirements that we will continue to face as we go forward. So that was the mandate put down in front of us in, I would say, really June of last year. Now, interestingly enough, the other thing the president said was, you know, product, you are going to, again, own the experience for the customer end-to-end, but that doesn't mean you're going to own every single thing that happens. You've got to manage it from an end-to-end perspective. And what we're going to do is that we're actually going to leverage all of the good process expertise that we now have embedded into all of those business units to help us to figure out how we are going to manage things from an end-to-end process perspective. So the service quality team actually became sort of the owners of the process of how we're going to do it, and the product group here is what became the shepherds or the stewards of owning the results of all of this. So working together, we've actually been putting in place at TD today our end-to-end process management strategy and are beginning to execute on it. So what do we mean when we say end-to-end? What's all-inclusive in end-to-end process? Well, for us it means we have the owner, as I mentioned. The process owners are our product groups, but also included are all these things you see in the chevrons, from the voice of the customer all the way through product sales, after-sales servicing, monitoring, and customer retention. We need to look at our marketing. We need to look at all the channels that feed it, our back office operations. Everyone's responsible for the retention. And also included is what systems or platforms are our processes running on, and what risk requirements do we have, or compliance requirements do we also have on those end-to-end processes. So another way, or the simplest way to say it's all in. When we say end-to-end, we really mean all in. So how do you take an organization that's not structured that way and today isn't really looking at things that way, and how do you begin to actually say, how are we going to manage this end-to-end? So our framework, quickly to do it, is actually based on the DMAIC framework. Step one is, once you've determined what end-to-end process you're going to be working on, is to create how is that process performing today, what is the voice of the customer, what process maps, what risks and controls do we have in place today, what are we missing? And that's what we do in our define phase. And then we go through and we take a look at all of the key measurables that we have today, the SLAs, the KPIs, what FMEAs do we have in place. We actually jump over to the control phase next and say, you know, if we've got a process owner, who are the sub-process owners? And we actually, at a minimum, say who is responsible for all of these various things. What we do next then is say, what are our big improvement opportunities, high level, both from a technology perspective and a just do it, you know, immediate perspective, and we start then together to end-to-end start working on things to improve. And this is all determined from an end-to-end perspective. So the lens is very high. And from a control perspective, we start now to put in against our key metrics, what are we going to be looking at and who's going to be watching this, and then how often are we going to come together in our governance. So this is what we've begun to put in place now across some of our key processes at TD. And this was developed by the service quality team in conjunction with our business partners. So it's brand new, and we're starting to execute on it. So because we're still in the early phases of it, we really are going to continue to expand it going forward. We will continue to prioritize, you know, our high impact end-to-end products and services, with looking again at our customer and risk lens. As we're doing this work, we are depositing our key maps, our key artifacts into a TD Enterprise Business Process Management Repository. And as I mentioned, it's early days for us to look at things and to manage from an end-to-end perspective. So what we're doing is we're continuing to refine our overall end-to-end process governance and interaction models. And what we're doing now is that we're really already starting to see some very large, what we're calling some transformational enterprise-wide changes that we already are beginning to see that we're going to want to start to put in place over the next 2 to 4 years. So this is the beginning of our journey, and this is actually where we are right now, yet where we're going to be carrying it forward for the next 2 to 4 years. So if I look at it from a maturity perspective of where are we right now on driving end-to-end, well, I think we definitely, a lot of the work that we've been doing the last 3 to 4 years is baselining how are we performing today. The trick is to begin to connect it all together. So we're definitely into the phase 1. We're beginning the alignment towards the phase 2. And I would say we're going to keep driving that into more and more of our processes. And then really our next big focus area as we start becoming a bit more mature next year is to look at managing our value chain from an end-to-end perspective. So this is something that we view as I would say, a 2 to 5 year journey to finally get us up to being fully optimized from a core end-to-end process perspective. So I don't want to in any way, shape, or form say, boy, this is like light reading. This is very heavy-duty lifting, and it's something that you can't do with just one project or in 1 year. But it's actually, this is a transformational approach to how you're going to be running your business. And so from our perspective, anyway, in our business, we feel it's going to be taking us the next 2 to 5 years to get all the way up to what we call fully optimized across our organization. But the good news is that, one of the key enabling factors in order to do this is that process expertise, which we are embedding more and more into our organization to enable us to do this. We couldn't do this without that. So with that, then, I'm actually ready and able to open it up to any questions that we may have in the remaining 15 minutes.
Wow, thank you so much, Leslie. That was great information and so good to hear just how well TD Bank is doing with your authority in doubling just the improvement projects and the resources for the bank. We've got lots of questions coming in. Question 1 that came in, what are the best strategies to achieve an effective Lean Six Sigma deployment so that there is an organizational buy-in?
Okay, could you repeat the question again?
Sure. What are the best strategies to achieve an effective Lean Six Sigma deployment so that you have buy-in?
So the question I'm assuming is around buy-in. So I think I sort of answered that question. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just reiterate what I said earlier, which is step 1 is that I think you have to have some aspect of leadership buy-in, I think, even to get started. In our organization, we had a senior leader, an executive vice president, who was really a very strong believer, maybe didn't know how to do it exactly, but a strong believer in that we need something in order to help us to improve, did some benchmarking externally, saw that Lean, it was actually more Lean when I first got in, not so much Six Sigma, but Lean, could help us to bring some changes in. And so what that leader did is they actually went out and said maybe we need to find an executive leader who has done this kind of work successfully, so has some expertise, if you will, in doing this work. And I was actually the result of that search and was brought in to do just that. So executive buy-in and then getting, I think, expertise to help to lead on the journey. So you start there, and then the next thing is to really have some expertise built into the organization, whether it's through like the leader or through the team, and it's not or, it's really through the team. And that's why I've spent a lot of time really, really ensuring that I am invested in my people and in developing my people so that they can effectively lead this kind of work. So there needs to be an investment in that. And then with those elements, you have to make sure that you're working on the right things. You have to be able to ensure, especially as you get started, when I say right things, it's things that are significant to the company, things that Lean Six Sigma can help you get to the results, and that you actually do get results. Because once you get results and you can prove to the organization that you've saved money, you've saved time, whatever it is that you're trying to solve for, that's how you get your buy-in.
Yes. Okay. So I will go on with another set of questions we've got, Leslie. What was the driver to TD's success? What have people been taught? What were the skills? What were the leadership? What do you think is really driving the success for you guys?
So again, I would say it's the same thing I just mentioned: executive buy-in, expertise, building the expertise, getting the results.
Yeah. And how do you find the balance between transformational improvements and day-to-day continuous improvement projects?
So I think that's an interesting question, because you actually probably initially start with smaller projects, smaller scope projects. So it depends on where you are in the maturity curve. So when you're just starting out, you may have things that are a bit more tangible, a bit more achievable, so that you don't lose the interest of your executives. So if you're at the journey initially, you probably will start just with what I would call shorter scoped projects, because you want to get the results. After you get your proof points in place, then you can start expanding more and more into some of the more strategic. But one of the things that we've been very mindful of is that we have some pretty clear targets to achieve with our businesses that we're supporting every year from an improvement perspective, so that we don't have the luxury of simply just working on strategic things, because strategy doesn't immediately lead to results. And I've seen a lot of companies make mistakes, or their Six Sigma teams, where they'll get assigned to an organization within their company that says, oh, I'm part of the strategic arm, and then a year later or 2 years later, the president or whoever will come back and say, well, what did you actually do for us? And so there is no tangible result. So we've been very mindful of all the way through to balance what I would say the tangible results that then enables us to, on a limited basis, use some of our headcount to actually help those businesses from a strategy perspective. But we always ensure that we hit the targets that our business partners from an improvement perspective need to hit in order to hit their objectives. So it's a balance between those two. The other aspect of hitting both targets, if you will, I mentioned maturity, always keeping in mind that you've got to hit your targets, is that over time, what you want to do as well is to enable your businesses to help you in hitting those improvement targets. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that you start training them in the tools and give them the tools in order to actually themselves start leading some of the projects. And our role is to provide guidance and to help to validate. And the more we do that, the more we get the benefits, and it gets driven further and farther into enabling them and doing it themselves. So those types of projects tend to be a little bit smaller. And once you get that deeply embedded into the business for what I would call some of the smaller ones, that frees you up a bit to do some of the larger, more strategic projects.
Okay, Leslie, I think your presentation went great. We have a lot of people asking for the slides of the presentation. We do not actually plan to send those out, but if you check your email, you will get access to the recording. Another question for you, Leslie. What are some of the lessons that you have learned at TD? What are some of the mistakes that you've made and learned from? And how would you do things differently in the future?
So, I think I would answer that not so much at TD, but I would say, I've been doing this kind of work for over 20 years. And so just from a collective experience perspective, I actually think in some ways, TD has done things very, very well in terms of just, they have a passion for their customers. They have a passion for getting better. We have the executive leaders have a passion for really trying to improve things, and that's a mindset. And I think that by itself really helps to helps to make this kind of work very, very successful. And so that's you've got to have the right culture in place, I think, in order to just have a chance of making this successful. So I think that piece that TD has really enabled and really helped us, the leadership here, and just the overall company culture, and just the focus on the customer has helped us to be very, very successful. Again, I would say just my experience would say I think one of the things that I see just from maybe most, I don't want to say most common mistakes, but something that black belts and green belts really have to watch out for is that initially green belts and black belts, you learn your own language. So to the business, it can almost be that you're speaking in foreign tongues. And so what I see sometimes with new black belts or green belts is that they're so excited about using their new tools and talking the language that they're actually speaking different and not bringing their businesses along with them. So a lessons learned could be, again, and something that we always have to focus in on is how can we simplify, put in the language of the people that we're supporting, so that they can understand, bring them along the conclusions that we're drawing from some of the tools. And then over time, as they get more comfortable with actually looking at some of the tools, I think you can use them more. But it's always to keep in mind, where your audience is coming from and to communicate to them at that same level. So I think that's a big just lesson learned, and something that we, even every day, we think, oh, we're doing pretty good, but, we sometimes are, talking in technical speak. We need to bring our audience along. I think another thing that I've just seen overall is, and I noticed this several years ago, maybe 10 years ago, is that if you read the literature, or if you some of the consultants, will say, I remember early days, well, Six Sigma is only for manufacturing, or Lean Six Sigma is only for manufacturing, and it's really not applicable to financial services or some of these other types of businesses. And I always kind of laughed at that, because that's actually, so not true, because a process is a process. And all that Lean Six Sigma does is actually help you to define what is that process, to understand what your customer needs if you incorporate voice of the customer tools, to measure how you're performing against, how your customer is saying they want things to go, to identify the gaps, and then to go and provide you with tools to improve it so you can close the gaps. So why wouldn't, any company, anywhere, for any process, want to be able to do that in a clear, concise, and repeatable and consistent fashion across their company? I don't know today of any stronger toolkit, any stronger approach that enables you to do just that. And so if you know how to do it, and can do it effectively, you can have the kind of results that we're seeing here, and any company can really achieve with that.
Leslie, that's great advice for us practitioners out there, and we definitely have a lot of practitioners listening in and eager to learn from you, a lot asking about projects. So let me ask you this. What are the factors TD Bank uses to select and prioritize which projects you guys will allocate resources for? And are they focused on money impact, quality, process speed, security? What exactly do you guys focus on for selecting projects?
All of the above. So I would say, you know, it truly is all of the above. But what I would say is, you know, so we have, it depends. So sometimes, because we're working in all areas of the bank today, so, you know, it could be something as simple as, boy, you know, we're having there's a major problem with our customers, and it could be it's taking too long to do something, and the customers are complaining a lot about it. So we may go in with an initial lens of, we've got to improve the speed, and what is it that's causing us to slow down? Well, once you go in and start applying these tools to that, and you're able to say, wow, all of these things are non-value added or inefficient, or, you know, we need to, you know, make some enhancements here or there to improve it. So you reduce the speed from like 10 minutes down to 2. Well, what impact does that have? That frees up capacity. Well, maybe you don't need as many people. And then that then will lead to, gee, we can do it. You know, we can either redirect people or we can do it with less cost. So that gets you to your cost equation. The other area that I've talked a bit about, but things like risk, you know, and even things like in our fraud space, for example, in some of those areas, or even, you know, our anti-money laundering areas, you know, we've got things periodically that actually have nothing to do, if you will, with a cost perspective, but it may be something about security or something like that. And we actually have to go in and improve some of the processes around those areas as well. So, you know, as we get more mature in doing this kind of work, at the, you know, during the planning phase the year before, the business units at the top of the house, and then it will be cascaded, will say, we've got to focus on improving speed, we've got to improve on focusing quality, and we really need to look at, you know, what can we do from a cost perspective to, you know, keep our costs in line or whatever. And so our business, our black belts who are embedded into the business will help those organizations. So how are we going to focus on closing the gap on those 3 areas? And then from that, then the actual projects cascade.
Gotcha. And you talked about culture to, you know, increase buy-in, having the right culture. What culture and political challenges did you have to overcome to achieve your Lean Six Sigma program results?
I think it's probably what most people, you know, would experience at any given time. Because we've been on a journey, not everybody is at the same place at any given time, and because we haven't had an actual, what I would say, like a, I'm going to say, like from GE perspective, a mandate that everybody will be doing this. Motorola also had a mandate when we started out that every single employee, every single business will be using this methodology to drive change within their business and improvement. I would say probably, you know, one of our more challenging things is that not every single business unit today is actually using Lean Six Sigma, and so you don't have that same continuity of improvement 100% across the organization. And so we're still on a journey to get everybody up to speed, but we're not there yet. So I'd say today that's probably one of our challenges.
Gotcha. Well, Leslie, we wish you and TD the best of luck. We had so many questions. I wish we could have gotten to all of them. Attendance at this webinar was just huge. We had a phenomenal turnout. And so if you enjoyed this webinar, you'll definitely receive the recording of it. You can go back and listen to it again. But Leslie, we want to thank you once again for your time, your input, and your education to us. And with that, we will close the webinar now. We've got just a couple seconds. Leslie, if you had any final points to share with us.
I don't know if I have points. I actually would just like to say thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story. I hope that it was of value, just to kind of hear about our journey, what we're going through, and some of our challenges as well. And just wanted to say again, really appreciate the time for me to share just some of our great learnings that we've had here at TD in our journey towards exceeding our customers' expectations.
Yes. Well, you guys are doing great. Keep it up, and thank you again.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Have a good one, Leslie.